What's up, everybody? It's Kevin here from Happy Beard Games, and I want to tell you a little story about 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, I was at a Goodwill store locally, and they had two Pac-Man plug-and-play games, and I passed on them. They were complete in box, looked really cool, and I decided I didn't really need them, because I have a couple plug-and-plays of Pac-Man, and I have a lot of other plug-and-plays, and Pac-Man Namco museums and stuff like that. But I went back there yesterday, and they had a lot more. And they were all new in box, some of them a little more damaged on the box, but I picked up one of them, and that's what we're going to be reviewing here today on Happy Beard Games. We've got this Pac-Man plug-and-play set. Now, I've already taken it out of the box, of course, because I needed to play it and check it out to review it. Wow. This is the Pac-Man plug-and-play device. It doesn't really have a specific name, but it just says Pac-Man all over it, and then it says Connect and Play, so maybe it's the Connect and Play. But it's also got this 35th anniversary, so you can kind of tell that it was from 2015. Because Pac-Man was in 1980 when it released. So, what is on this Pac-Man plug-and-play? Let's just go over the games, because there's 12 of them, sort of. It says there's 12, but they're kind of fudging it a little bit here. But the games are Pac-Man Original, Galaga, Exevious, or Xevious, Exevious, is it like Xavier, like Professor X, Dig Dug, New Rally X, or is it Rally Cross? See, another name, I don't know about those X's. We've got Galaxian, Mappy, Super Pac-Man, Bosconian, Pac-Man Plus, Pac and Pal. And the last game, number 12, is actually Pac-Man Level 256. Not really a game, it's just Pac-Man at the very end on the kill screen. It starts you out and you get to beat the final level of Pac-Man until the game glitches out and you reach the kill screen. So you get to play around in a glitchy mess. It's a gimmick, yeah, it's definitely a gimmick, but it's fun to check out for people that haven't seen it yet, or if they want to play it themselves, because honestly, I can't make it past 20 levels, probably 20 levels on Pac-Man. That's probably around my record, even with some easy mode settings enabled. Now, this is a shape that you all recognize as Pac-Man. Maybe that way? Either way you're going around the maze, you look like this in the original Pac-Man. This is Pac-Man. And to many generations of gamers, that's what Pac-Man looks like. And it's very recognizable, instant icon Pac-Man. Now, they designed the actual plug-and-play system as a controller, and it's shaped like Pac-Man, of course, but it's also got the buttons. You got B and A, kind of Nintendo styled. You got B first, then A, and then on the back, you might see it's blank. And there's a reason for that, and there's also a reason why you don't see any cords. No, it's not wireless, no, it's not Bluetooth. Plug and Play have not stepped up their game that much. As we look inside this, you can see that there is a cord management system inside, and there's also space to insert some batteries. Now, it does take 4 AA batteries, which is kind of a lot, but hopefully that means that the gameplay will last longer than most plug-and-plays. Now, I am by no means an expert on Pac-Man and the other arcade games included, though I have played them quite a bit throughout the years. Alright, the first category we're looking at is control. Since this is mostly a controller with a battery pack and video output, control is very important. The control for this plug-and-play is somewhere in the middle. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 points. And the reasoning for that, there's a couple things that are really kind of nitpicky things that lower the score. They're by no means break or make the gameplay. They will feel comfortable while you're playing it, but other plug-and-plays have just done it better, and the arcade systems as well have done it better, so it's going to feel like a setback from the arcade. It won't be the exact same arcade control experience that you're used to. The couple reasons for that are the joystick height. It's a little bit short. The stick is very short, actually. And the quality of the stick itself, while it looks metallic, it's just painted metallic. I'm not sure if there's actually a metal stick underneath, but I believe there is. However, it's got this metallic plastic overcoating over that. And it's got a ball top, which isn't the highest quality ball top I've seen. It's actually pretty low, and it has a seam down the middle, but it does work. A couple minor annoyances with the joystick itself include this. Brace yourselves, guys, this might be a little loud. Now that only happens, the squeaky sound is what I'm referring to, it happens when you're moving in a full circle, such as that. Now if I were to move the joystick solely up or down, left or right, in a smooth, precise fashion, you won't get that squeaky sound, so only sometimes you'll get that squeaky sound if you're moving it either very fast or in a circular motion. So you kind of want to avoid that if you want to avoid the squeak. I don't know if it's just my model or all models, but I'm assuming more than one of them will have that squeaky sound to it, as this was brand new in the box when I got it yesterday. Now, that also might wear down as you keep playing it. Maybe it'll go away after a while, but to my gameplay and my experiences with it, it has not gotten any quieter. So that's the joystick. Let's look at the buttons. Now the buttons are kind of interesting because they did once again label them B and A, sort of like a Nintendo NES, but they didn't really need to do that. It does actually refer to the buttons as B and A in the in-game menu, which we'll see later, but in the actual games themselves, they don't have a B or A button. But there is a couple games on here that do use more than one button, which is why they did need two buttons at least. One of the few games that actually uses both B and A buttons is Exvius, but you can also use the B and A buttons to return to the home menu at any time during gameplay. What you need to do is hold down both buttons for about 3 seconds. It'll come up with a question that'll ask you if you want to return to the home menu or not, which is good, so that will avoid you from doing it on accident. But what do the two B and A buttons actually feel like when you're playing? Honestly, to me they feel a little small, a little less clicky than others, and aside from that, they do work. Now the B and A buttons are definitely springy, they spring up very well. They have a different kind of texture because they are actually textured for the B and A lettering on each button. So you do have that texture. It's not smooth, it doesn't concave as much as other arcade-style buttons. They also, when you press them, they don't click. If you're hearing that, it's more of a soft button press rather than an actual click. Some arcade games have a nice click to them, akin to that of a mouse click, and I really like that on those arcade games and arcade controllers at home. As you might be able to tell, this is a little hard to hold for me when I'm moving it around on this video because of the blocky sort of 8-bit design of it, and it's kind of hard to hold on to. Now when you're holding it during a gameplay, most of the time you're not going to be wanting to hold it like I'm holding it now, like with two hands like an actual gamepad. That's going to feel pretty uncomfortable for a couple reasons. Not only is it kind of big on the side, but it's also kind of sharp on some of these corners. Not like sharp like you're going to cut yourself, but kind of like it's poking you, you know? If you hold on to it for long enough, like you might get kind of pokey marks in there. Like I'll show you, like, look at that. Well, that's what it feels like when you're holding this controller this way. So what I'd recommend is setting it on a tabletop. If you have a coffee table tray, or a side table, or a desk, that will work even better for using this controller, and that's, in my opinion, the ideal way to hold onto this controller. On a few of the games, these controls work pretty good, and those games were the spaceship shooters, such as Galaxian, Exvius, and Galaga. On those games, you're moving left to right mostly, a little bit of forward and backward action on Exvius, but for the most part, it's pretty simple directional movement. And for that, this controller works very well. It does what it should. Now, on a couple other games, they also worked well, such as Mappy and Dig Dug, with simple movements on a platformer-style 2D plane. But on many of the maze-style games, this is a Pac-Man collection after all, so there's many maze games like Pac-Man in it. I had a harder time maneuvering using this joystick. Some of the other games that were not Pac-Man games that I had a hard time moving in were Bosconian and Rally X. Some of the reasons that I had a hard time controlling this go back to when I was moving it in a full circle before. When it made that squeaky sound, it kind of feels like you can't move it very well from corner to corner. You can do up to down, left to right, right to left, stuff like that. That works good. But if you're going around the corner in a maze of Pac-Man, for example, going from right to up, or any other direction where you're going around a tight corner, it kind of feels a little off. And just a little bit threw me off in the gameplay at first. That was the thing I noticed with the controls that was negative. So for those reasons, the controls on this plug-and-play get a 5 out of 10. Now let's move on to the presentation category of this plug-and-play system. This system actually has a really good presentation, and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 in this category. The reasoning behind that is the design of the controller itself is very appealing. It's Pac-Man after all. It has a bright orange colored ball top joystick and nice white buttons that are easy to see. It's got a light for the power. It's got a special storage case on the back, which is really handy. And you can use that to store your wires and put the batteries inside so you don't have to see that when you're playing. Or even when you're just looking at it. And you can also use this as a display. Put it up on your shelf. Really cool, really cool. And that's all good for the presentation. But there's more to it than what you see on the outside. The presentation in-game is excellent as well. You have a home menu with all 12 games labeled at the front of the menu. When you highlight a game, it not only plays a Pac-Man sound effect, it also displays a character from that game around the game's icon that you're highlighting on, which is cool. It also shows in the center of the screen a few screenshots of gameplay so you know what game you're looking at before you click on it. There's also a couple other features that are really handy that I don't see in most plug-and-plays. One of those is the option to, as we mentioned before, hold down the A and B buttons at the same time for 3 seconds to have the option to return to the main menu. Some plug-and-plays have their menu button on the controller, which is good to have a menu button rather than just turning it on or off, but sometimes that menu button can accidentally be pressed. So this eliminates that problem on this controller because there's no menu button to press, and when you do hold down those 2 buttons, even if you hold them down on accident, it'll ask you before you return to the main menu, which is really nice, and I'm really glad they included that, because if they didn't, that could be a problem very easily. And one other feature that is the justification for the 10 out of 10 on this plug-and-play system is the high score leaderboard. The high score leaderboard seems like a no-brainer for arcade games, but many of these plug-and-play systems leave it omitted. Some of them do include the high score leaderboards on each game, but this one leaves it not only in the game, but you can check them at any time on the home menu, which is really cool. You can see it for each game all on one screen. You can see the top score that you have set for each game. Not only that, but to the best of my knowledge, it saves that high score on its memory. So for those reasons, the presentation on this Pac-Man plug-and-play gets a 10 out of 10. For portability, this plug-and-play is actually kind of big. Because of its Pac-Man design, it kind of gets in the way of being a handheld. It's definitely a bigger one, not just in terms of the surface area, but the depth as well is pretty big too, to make it a little tall. A couple positives about this plug-and-play's portability is its storage system for the cord. You can store the cord in the back by wrapping it up very easily, and storing it and closing it off with this cap. Another reason I took down a point from this on its 8 out of 10 score is because of the batteries. The batteries are an important part of having a portable system because you need power and you need to be able to take it with you wherever you go. Now this does take 4 AA batteries, which you have to unscrew with a screwdriver, so you might need a screwdriver as well. But the 4 batteries, that's kind of a lot. That's like original Game Boy 1989 style battery usage. That's a lot for this. Now I'm hoping that means that it'll last a long time, because most of my plug-and-plays actually only take 2 AA batteries. So this is kind of a hefty deal. Not only that, but in regards to portability, it also adds some weight to it, but that's not too much of a big deal for me. It just might feel a little bit heavier in your backpack or purse or whatever. You can plug it into almost any TV that I can think of, whether it be HD or CRT. It should have a composite input. That's the basic yellow and white inputs. This is not stereo, but it does sound good in mono because it's an arcade game. So for the category of portability, this Pac-Man plug-and-play gets an 8 out of 10. Pretty good so far. Now this final category is other. What other things can this do that sets it out and sets it apart from the normal plug-and-plays that you see in stores? Does it have any special features? Does it do anything above and beyond? Now for this category, we're not going to be giving it a score like the other categories, because it's a special, unique category, and it's hard to rank it amongst other systems that way to compare to. One of them is something I've mentioned quite a bit, and that is the overall design. It looks like Pac-Man, that's great, we love that. We also love that it has this back storage compartment. Another thing that we really like about this is saving the high scores. That's actually something that's pretty unique, so I'm going to put that in this category as well, because I have a lot of arcade-style plug-and-plays, and I think this is the only one out of about 10 that I have that you can actually save the high scores to. That's a new feature. I've never really seen that on any other one. The other ones do have high score leaderboards, but not where you can save them and come back to them at a later date. And that includes things like Atari Flashback and Intellivision Flashback. Those do not have that type of memory from the ones that I've played. I know future ones may have changed that, and things like the Super Nintendo Classic Edition definitely has that. But this Pac-Man plug-and-play is one of the few plug-and-plays that allows you to save that data for a later date. Another unique feature on the other category for this Pac-Man plug-and-play is a really tiny detail, and it might not be noticeable by all players, but I definitely noticed it when comparing it to my other plug-and-plays. When I used the same TV setup, and I used this plug-and-play, this one appeared to have better picture quality than most of my other plug-and-plays. And that was pretty cool. I know this is a more recent one, but it still uses composite video. And that means pretty much the lowest video you can get, so I'm assuming it's 480i resolution, non-widescreen. But it looks clearer and more detailed, and some of the animations on the menu are pretty good, and the sound effects as well, so it actually looks really good for what it is. The picture quality is about as good as it gets for a plug-and-play. The final score that I'm going to give this Pac-Man plug-and-play is a 23 out of 30 point score. The reasoning for that was because of the control. I gave it a 5 out of 10 on control. Not so good, but not so bad either. And I gave it a 10 out of 10 on presentation because it looks as good as it does in person as it does when you're playing the games. And then I gave it an 8 out of 10 for portability because it has that unique storage system for the cable and batteries, and the batteries should last a long time. With that 23 out of 30 score and a couple other unique features, I'd say that this Pac-Man plug-and-play is a good way to play Pac-Man and the other games included. It's still a lot of fun, a little bit tricky to control, but it has good presentation value, and it's portable. And that's it for this Pac-Man plug-and-play review from Bandai and Namco, reviewed by me, Kevin from Happy Beard Games. Alright everybody, thank you for watching today's Happy Beard Games. If you want to support my channel, please leave a like, please subscribe to Happy Beard Games, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think, I'd love to hear it. Also, you can check out my Instagram account for some extra behind-the-scenes videos, pickups, and pictures on that Instagram account. You can also check me out on Twitter for some shares and tweets of my content. Alright guys, thank you for watching once again. Until next time, Happy Beard Games, we'll see you then. Bye!